It's my pleasure to be speaking with Joydeep Hor, high-profile employment lawyer, as well as an individual with his own personal brand, often asked to speak on TV about those issues. Facebook, recently introduced Timeline, has some potential impact on employment and a personal brand. I'm curious to explore this with you.
It certainly does, and as with all of the good things that attach to social media and Facebook and the conveniences that we have, certainly from a relationship building point of view and keeping in touch with friends and family and reconnecting and all of those things, the introduction of Timeline, certainly from the perspective of its impact on recruitment and an employer-employee relationship, is very significant. The fact that people's Facebook pages and profiles might be readily accessible depending on the kinds of access settings they've put on it means that most employers these days will at least try to see what is available in relation to a particular person. Now, the kinds of information, the types of information that you put on yourself, not just most recently and that are current about you, but also historical information that you have posted or others have posted about you or to you at given points in time, could well be indirectly used against you by virtue of it tainting the view that is had about you by a prospective employer. Now, there are laws that prohibit discrimination on certain grounds. So, for example, the mere fact that someone attended the Mardi Gras and that there are photos of them from 5 years ago at the Mardi Gras, and that leads to a view by a prospective employer that because the person must be gay, I'm not going to hire that particular person, and if it can be proved that that was a reason for the decision, would clearly be illegal. But what tends to happen in these kinds of matters is that it'll never be that overt, and other reasons will be identified, and that's not to suggest for a second that anyone should be secretive or in any way ashamed or seek to disguise their hobbies, their passions, their interests, their preferences, whether sexual, religious, ethno-national or whatever it might be. But naturally, the more information you put up there, the more you potentially tap into other people's views about certain things. It doesn't necessarily mean that any of those views are right, fair, or even legal. But the other thing in all of this is employers will, as a general rule, and there are always going to be exceptions to this, but employers as a general rule will be a little bit apprehensive in most instances if an employee or prospective employee is being seen to be too out there. And regardless of what is the context in which they've been out there, the fact of them being out there makes an employer or might make an employer a bit nervous.
Okay, example of being out
An
there.
example of being out there is I participated in this student rally where we were actively protesting against the introduction of this, or I participated in this particular march and I'm a member of this particular group and I've set up this lobby group and here are all of these things that I've, letters to the editor that I've written complaining about the carbon tax and whatever it might be. Now, the thing that worries employers is even if I don't have a view about that particular issue, I apprehend that you might be a volatile employee. I apprehend that if you get a bee in your bonnet about something that's happening in this organisation, you might be marshalling the troops to generate discontent. And that makes me a bit nervous as an employer. Now, I'm sure many of the listeners are thinking, well, that's me, that's who I am, that's what I'm passionate about, and if an employer is not going to take me for who I am, well, I don't want to work at that particular employer. And that's fine, that's fine. But there needs to be an understanding that the more information that you put out there about yourself is likely to trigger more responses to that information. That's a simple scientific conclusion.